Problem. Stop screen recording means that I am definitely recording. Alright, so today, let us just. I need to see myself, otherwise I get confused. Um, sorry. Float on top. Excellent. Alright, so today I want to talk about a different kind of move, the meta move. If you see Shakespeare's self-criticism, the meta move. This is a move that students don't make very often because it's slightly harder. It's not one of those, a woman says something about women and then we read what it says about women, or a man says something about women, etc. And so it's a different kind of jump. It's a jump from a character says something about another character, usually in a theatrical tone, or says something about themselves that has, in Shakespeare's case, theatrical undertones. And based on that, we read something into Shakespeare's own theater. So we're saying the character is talking about the theater to show us something that Shakespeare is saying about the theater. And oftentimes, the beauty of this move, there are a couple of beauties. One, students rarely do this. So this is a playground that you get to play with all by yourself, very often. And there's a lot less risk of sounding repetitive and unoriginal, especially when you're dealing with A-levels. It's nice to be able to distinguish yourselves with such an accessible move. And two, it makes sense of scenes that wouldn't otherwise make all that much sense, which we'll see with Richard II and The Tempest later on. Three, I think one of the things we need to see is that Shakespeare is beyond the absolute world-class master of language and literature, is also a human being with insecurities and huge writing problems. Huge in the sense not that his writing is limited, but in the sense that the projects he's trying to accomplish are huge. Just imagine you're trying to capture history alongside creating a great play, alongside developing really interesting characters, alongside giving your actors lines and just filling hours, alongside saying something really meaningful about human psychology, and all these things need to cohere into a pleasing poetic form that pleases most of your audience, who are often uneducated, and without dumbing it down, you need to entertain a lot of different people. The task is monumental. I don't even want to imagine being told to write a Shakespearean play. I think the failure would be massive. And so, just in that context, the feeling that you've done something wrong, just to add to the problems, combining comedy and tragedy and introducing the right kinds of tone, all these comic interludes that are supposed to give your audience a breath, but risk tilting the whole edifice of the play. I think there's something about that we see Shakespeare struggling with time and time again, with just how serious things need to be, how meaningful they are. So just without further ado, all four quotes have this semi-dismissive quality when you think about it, and we'll see what I write about them later on, but this is basically the values of what I'm about to teach you is something new for you to do, a way of understanding scenes that otherwise make less sense, and a way of humanizing Shakespeare, which is so important, because I think so many kids have such a terror of Shakespeare as, almost a divine being in the world of literature, because there's no writer who has Shakespeare's status. I don't even think across languages there's any other writer that has Shakespeare status. And that's a terrifying thing to encounter. We kind of want to be like a character facing a king in a Shakespearean play, just immediately kneeling as soon as the king comes on stage. It's just, there's something awe-inspiring about Shakespeare. And knowing that he had these problems, that he didn't feel like every single line of his is divinely inspired, I think, for me, it's comforting. For me, it's comforting to know that, yes, it would probably be worth my life to have written one line of Shakespeare, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that Shakespeare wasn't human and struggling, which is just, to me, a charming way of thinking about Shakespeare that most people don't think about Shakespeare in. Alright, so, quote number 1. Life's but a walking shadow. Hopefully anyone of you who's read Macbeth knows this speech. It's probably the most famous of Macbeth's speeches. It's the tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts it frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. This is such a good line that it produced one of the great modernist novels, in a way, The Sound and the Fury by Faulkner. And, okay, what we'll do, basically, is we'll read all of these things as saying something about Shakespeare's art, instead of the basic, oh, he's saying life is this. Life is a meaningless affair. Which he is saying. He is saying that. But our move would be to say, actually, he's saying that his art is producing potentially nothing. Just think about the terror of that notion of, especially when Macbeth is a tale so full of sound and fury. The idea that he's worked so hard to build so many different meters and alliterations and assonances and sibilants, and all of this signifies nothing. Nothing is just a terrifying thing. So, yes, Romeo and Juliet. Anyone who's done GCSEs with me last year will have been reading these kinds of lines ad nauseum, but basically the oxymoron that signifies Romeo's Petrarchan stage. Fetter of lead, bright smoke, cold fire, sick health, da-da-da-da-da-dum. What's most important to me, he ends this with, dost thou not laugh? This is clearly a moment that's supposed to make us think about the theater, in my opinion. Because the character is literally asking us to laugh. Whenever a character is asking one character something, the audience is also being asked that thing. In my opinion. At least we can read it that way. And I gave you another case where it's like, peace, peace, Mercutio, peace, thou talkst of nothing. Where I didn't really do a reading of this, but you can definitely see how Shakespeare's written something. One reading of this is Shakespeare's written this Queen Mab speech, dream that seems really revolutionary, but at the same time bordering on nonsense. And then Romeo kind of says, yeah, it's possible that it is nonsense. Peace, peace, thou talkst of nothing. Maybe I just said something meaningless. You guys ever written an essay and thought, oops, I've talked of nothing? I certainly have. So this could very well be a comment about Shakespeare there as well. And here the Duchess of York comes to beg for her son's life. Thy aunt, great king, it is I, speak with me, pity me, open the door, a beggar begs that never begged before. And King Henry IV goes, Our scene is altered from a serious thing, and now changed to the beggar and the king. My dangerous cousin, let your mother in. I know she has come to pray for your foul sin. So, his cousin has come, initially with the intention of murdering him. Now he's repented, and he's going to confess to his own treasonous plot. And the king's reaction is, oh, now we're dealing with something of a farce. Our scene is no longer a serious thing. One of the most bizarre comments you can make about people begging for their lives and potentially executing them potentially executing you, or at least murdering you. And I think it only makes sense as a comment on Shakespeare's own theater. And here, in The Tempest, Prospero has this divine plan to bring his daughter into marriage with a very suitable young man, the Duke of Naples, and he gets them to fall in love. He orchestrates the whole thing. They fall in love. What can a father want more but that his daughter will fall in love with the man that he wants her to fall in love with? And Prospero's reaction is, soft sir, one word more. They are both in it, and he gives us this aside. Asides are really very theatrically self-commenting, because they really are towards the audience, not so much towards another character. They are both in either's power, but this swift business I must make uneasy, lest too light winning make the prize light. And then he starts building a plot where he tells Ferdinand that he's an imposter, and he has to prove himself, and all these things. But when you think about it, if you were to plan your daughter's marriage, and it was accomplished like that, wouldn't you be extremely happy? Would you then be seeking to make things uncomfortable? So again, part of what we're doing here is we're making sense of commentary that makes little sense without it being a comment on the theater. As a comment on human relations, I doubt any of you would really want to set someone up with the perfect guy or girl, and then when they get together, think to yourselves, well, we should probably make things harder on them, so that they can really earn it, can really appreciate what they've got by getting tested, being tested. Alright, now my writing about self-reflexivity. Let's see, how am I doing on time? Do not know. Do not know. Alright, I'll try and almost, you know what? I think this is a good place to pause, and the second video will just be about me reading and explaining how we turn this into writing. Alright, thank you, and we shall return soon. Nope. Forgive my... I will become better at this. I will.